And all right, here we are. Hi, my name's Nathan Benamoz with the Hope Network. I'd like to thank you if you've been a part of the live interview series over the last several days, learning about the hidden legacy of the Jewish people. Our last interview is none other than Michael Steinberger, the founder of the Jewish Heritage Alliance. He is spearheading this mission, and he brought us all the great content and interviews over the last few days. And in this next interview, we're going to give him the opportunity to introduce himself, what his mission is, what his background is, and where he sees this whole thing going. Michael, thanks for being with us and making all this happen.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you very much for the introduction. So yes, I'm going to try and bring it all together on this segment, give it a little background about how I got here, what my interests are, what led me to take on the Sepharad narrative, and how we're going about it. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Steinberger. I am founder and CEO of Jewish Heritage Alliance, a platform dedicated to promoting the story of Sepharad. My professional background is in tourism, which indirectly led me to discover the story of Sepharad. The word Sepharad in Hebrew literally means Spain, but in historical context, the Sepharad refers to the Jews of the Iberian Peninsula, nowadays Spain and Portugal. So when I first discovered the story of Sepharad, I realized that it was a monumental, far-reaching segment of Jewish and world history with profound consequences. Simultaneously, I also found that for all of its significance and relevance, at least globally speaking, the story of Sepharad is missing in action. It's lacking the attention that it truly deserves. So I started Jewish Heritage Alliance with a mission to recover and promote the story of Sepharad on a global scale. Okay, so to accomplish this ambitious mission, I created a strategic alliance, partnering with various organizations, institutions, individuals who had an interest in the story of Sepharad. The alliance allows us to expand our reach and broaden our scope, creating a voice of the collective. One important example is our partnership with the Museum of the Jewish People at Beit HaTfusot in Tel Aviv, Israel. Beit HaTfusot is a highly respected global institution focused on telling the story of the Jewish people. Working together with the Portuguese government and the tourist offices of Porto in northern Portugal and others, we created a capsule exhibit that we call At the Crossroads of Sepharad in the Footsteps of the Crypto Jews. The mobility of the exhibit allows us to promote the story of Sepharad on a global scale, and is one of the many ways we plan to promote the story of Sepharad. Due to COVID-19, we are going to offer an online version of this exhibit. So please follow us on Facebook and Instagram for upcoming online presentations where we'll actually feature the exhibit. Let's talk about Sepharad.
Michael, real quick, can I interrupt? I want to ask you about the importance for the people of Israel and the Jewish people. Why is this? What are the implications of the story, and what does this mean for the Jewish people, and then more for the world?
So I have a request for you. Let's save that to. Let me speak about the relevance and the converses, and I think it's going to come full circle. I will actually discuss it. I think it's premature, because I think let the people on, the story.
Well, I want to also create the context, because there's people that have been following the story, and then there's people that are new. They actually are just plugging back in.
I think we need to build as to what the relevance is before I can answer that question. Bear with me.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Bear with me. If I don't hit the points, bring it to my attention. So the story of Sepharad is a kaleidoscopic, extensive, far-reaching story with endless twists, turns. It's about people, it's about events spanning centuries. And it would be difficult, if not impossible, to cover in this presentation. So for today's presentation, I'm going to give just a summary, outline, to create some sort of a background, a backdrop for the Sepharad narrative. By some accounts, Jews arrived to the Iberian Peninsula as early as biblical times. There are references to Spain in the book of Obadiah and other biblical references. The earliest archaeological proof dates back to the 4th century. As was true throughout Jewish history, this was a tumultuous and turbulent period for the Jews of Sepharad, experiencing oppression, persecutions, pogroms, and forced conversions. But there were some important and creative uplifting periods. As an example, in the year 711, the Moors, which were Muslims from North Africa, attacked and conquered southern Spain, the region we now call Andalusia. The Muslims, being Semites, were more accepting of the Jews and allowing them to practice their religion openly. In fact, more interesting is that the Muslims actually collaborated with the Jews, often placing them in important and high-ranking positions. This harmony created the period we call the Golden Age, a period of enlightenment, prosperity, a time when the Iberian Peninsula became a thriving center, cultivating Jewish philosophers, poets, scientists, and famous Talmudic commentators such as the Maimonides. But this Golden Age ends when the Christian kingdoms reconquer southern Spain, leading to the end of the Moorish era and brings back a ruthless period of oppression, persecutions, and mass massacres of the Jews. During these massacres, thousands of Jews were killed, thousands fled, and thousands were forcibly converted. Jewish life in Spain ends abruptly in 1492, when the Jews are told to leave or convert. Neither option was really good. Those able to leave made their way across the border to Portugal, where unfortunately 5 years later, they too were forced to convert. These forced conversions create the crypto-Jewish phenomenon. So let's stop for a moment and review use of the word crypto-Jews, conversos, also new Christians. Crypto-Jews and conversos are used intermittently. To be sure, they are both describing Jews that were converted to Christianity. Crypto-Jews refer to those who converted, but try to hold on to the Jewish traditions in secret. New Christians is what the church called the converted Jews to distinguish them from the old Christians. Converso tends to be the catch-all phrase for all of the above. It is important to note that when discussing converso crypto-Jews, we are actually speaking of their descendants. A more current term is Bnei Anusim, which in Hebrew means descendants of the coerced. Crypto-Jews were and are a tenacious and brave people that try to hold on to their Jewish identity under the threat of inquisition. If caught, the result was trial, imprisonment, torture, or even death, most of it by fire. These crypto-Jews had to live a double life, Christians by day and Jews by night or in hiding. Also challenging were their efforts to pass Jewish traditions down through the generations, because there were no formal books or documents available. They had to do this. They had to do all of this by word of mouth, just using rituals that were passed down through the generations. The Sfarad saga spans centuries. Story of struggle, story of survival, search for redemption, etc. What is really unique about the story is that it's not just a relic of history. The saga of Sepharad continues to this day, unfolding at present moment right here in the backyard, in our backyard, the United States of America and around the world. Many of these descendants continue to live under the cloak of secrecy, as they have for hundreds of years. Most continue to live as committed Catholics, but many continue to practice those hidden Sephardic traditions they inherited. DNA studies suggest that 1 in 4 Latinos is a descendant of Jewish ancestry. Thousands are uncovering the Jewish roots, and some are seeking return. The implications for the future of the Jewish people and Israel are immeasurable. The Sepharad legacy lives today in both the Sephardic Jewish community and the converso community. But the glaring difference is that there are only 16 million Jews in the world today, and there are at least 200 million plus conversos. You got to pay attention to the numbers. 16 million Jews in total, and we have at least 200 million and probably more conversos.
So that's the implication, is that we get to actually realize we're much bigger people than we presently are in the world today.
Well, to elaborate on some of the discussions that were held by earlier guests, we believe that this has a real serious implication, considering the reality of the Jewish people today. We believe that. Well, I'll come back to that. Let me just finish my thought, and I'll come back to that. So I want to emphasize. I want to sort of close this statement with where I began. This front segment of Jewish history did not and does not have the same coverage or attention of European or biblical Jewry. And so we really invite each and every one of you to follow Jewish Heritage Alliance, to learn more about the silent but rich and profound Jewish heritage that this period actually is producing. I'm sorry, go ahead, Nathan. Let's go back to your question.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this, because it's, first of all, we're hitting all the points that we didn't necessarily directly hit in the previous interviews. And we also got a lot of the excitement. Like when you interviewed Rabbi Ventura, we actually got to the place where the rubber meets the road, where there's someone in Brazil, one of the largest converso communities in the world, and you actually are realizing the excitement of the people who are coming in contact with this message, seeing their heritage. So there's like an excitement that extends beyond just the Jewish people, where you have the Brazilians. I saw someone from Mexico commenting. I mean, the excitement is pretty global, I would say. And it's not just the Jewish people. You have incredible support with the Christians too.
Because it resonates, in the Christian community. One of the mesmerizing parts of the story, and it has so many moving parts, is the fact that, as I said in my prior statement, is that think of this concept. 1 out of every 4 Latinos is a descendant of Sepharad. That's an amazing story, and it's, even though this is hundreds of years in the making, it's something that's just recently caught on. It's beginning to resonate with more and more people. And for example, the interview with Lorenzo Trujillo. Here's a man who knew he was Christian all of his life, he knew his descendants were Christians, and then he discovers he's got Jewish tradition, and he's a descendant of Jews of Sfarad. What happens? He's very comfortable in his Christian life, but he embraces and he's proud of his Jewish heritage. Think of that. Think of a coming together, where Christianity and Judaism find a common ground in such a profound way. So here's a Christian person who appreciates not only Judaism as a concept, but as being part of his own heritage. I think that's in Hebrew we say maksim. It's amazing.
Well, it's interesting, because my uncle on my mom's side, he's very Christian. He's involved in ministry work, and we're Polish, and apparently there was a time in our history, which he tells me, we're Jewish. So this didn't just happen in Spanish history, but he sees himself as a supporter of Israel. So I think as Christians, I don't know if it's an obligation, but there's a deep desire to acknowledge that we're all kind of like a family, if you will.
Well, more than that, I think Lorenzo spoke to this somewhat. What's interesting is that as far as we know, those conversos who learn their conversos and don't necessarily try to make the journey back to Judaism, although we have that as well. But people like Lorenzo, they embrace their past and are proud of it. And Lorenzo is a Zionist, more so than many Jews that I know. Sadly, I'm sad to say. And he takes a lot of his Christian friends on many trips to Israel to introduce them to the magic of the Holy Land. And he tells the story that when he first arrived to Israel and landed in Lod Airport, he said he was consumed by an aura he felt like he was home. And these are amazing stories.
Do you think, I know I'm speculating here, but do you think one of the implications could be a deepening partnership and bond between the nation of Israel and some of these Latino nations?
Well, absolutely. I think there's no question about that. Look at Brazil. The new government in Brazil became very friendly towards Israel. Your question is very appropriate. There's definitely a coming together.
So there's this economic and political partnership that can occur here. There's also what's so interesting. We talk about the ancestry. This isn't just a little bit of ancestry. A lot of these families, they kind of married cousins and second cousins. So a lot of these people have significant Jewish heritage. It's not even just a little bit.
That's an important point you bring. So the crypto Jews that I talked about, those are the Jews. I distinguish them from the other conversos by saying those are the ones who attempted to keep their Jewish heritage alive. The crypto Jewish community, including Lorenzo's family, and that's what he found out. He was the first one to break out of this, what you've just described. So the crypto Jews, in order to maintain their Jewish tradition, they married each other, meaning they married cousins, second cousins. And so, yes, Ginny Milgram, when she did her research, she went back some 22 generations to 1405, and she was able to identify that some 500 plus years later, she has a direct Jewish lineage to 1405 because they married amongst, themselves in the family. By the way, the other thing that Rabbi Ventura brought up that's worth mentioning that I wanted to touch upon, he said a couple of things along this line of thinking that I'm about to speak to. So, we're losing a lot of Jewish people to assimilation. It's a huge problem for the Jewish people, especially in diaspora. It doesn't really take place so much in Israel. And the rate of assimilation is phenomenal. They're talking about 71% in the United States, probably similar in Brazil. And so Rabbi Ventura, when he first started on this mission, and he goes back 20 years ago, he caught a lot of blowback. There was a lot of resistance. People, looked at him a little strangely and cross-eyed. A lot of people took issue with the whole idea of the converso still, being Jewish, and that's a story unto itself. And so he had a lot of resistance from the community, from the established Jewish community. But that was 20 years ago. Now they embrace him because they realize, and this is important, and Rabbi Ventura talked to this, that their synagogues are empty. They actually have to pay people to come to have a minyan. Minyan is, we need a minimum of 10 men in order to hold, to have a quorum for prayer. Without 10 men, you can pray, but it's a different type of prayer. And so they actually have to pay some of their people to come and be on these minyanim.
Wow.
Whereas the converso community that he's helped bring back from converso to Judaism, and there's 26 communities that he's brought back together. We're talking about maybe 1,000 people who've converted, went through the formal conversion. These are really practicing Jews of the Sephardic customs that are now, unfortunately, but realistically, starting to compensate and fill in for the people we lose through assimilation. And I want to end with this point. Rabbi Ventura makes the point that this outcome was prophesized. So we're actually living out biblical prophecy right here today. So this is an amazing time. And he makes the point that if he was asked in this, conceptually in the sky, when do you want to be born and where do you want to be born? He said, I want to be here now and in Brazil to be part of this resurrection. So these are fascinating times, and it's a fascinating story. And I'm really grateful, and I mean this sincerely, for the opportunity to be here at the right time, at the right moment, and to make a difference, to bring the story to the fore.
Well, this is such an incredible story. I mean, there's people who are just full Jewish that don't even know about this story, which, actually I found it interesting because, I mean, obviously it's a huge part of the history. I mean, when you think about Jewish history, you have biblical times and you have the Holocaust. But in between, most people don't even talk about this story of Sepharad, which, I mean, from what you've told me, is was the largest, most prosperous Jewish settlement. And these people fanned out not just to Latin America, but they went all over the Mediterranean, all over Europe. So the implications literally touched every single nation. And these were educated people, and they transformed and they contributed to every culture they went to.
One of our presentations, we had Ashley Perry. It's not on this series. When we did the presentation, I think for Jewish National Fund, And he spoke. He spoke about uh, the importance of the community in terms of coming back to Israel, and for Israel to reach out to the Converso community. Um, and I missed out the last point of what you said. If you can repeat
Well,
it.
how they didn't just end up in Latin American communities. They literally went
Oh, so I'm
all over
sorry. So
Europe.
that was what I
Yep.
want to say. So he makes the point, actually, thank you for bringing me back to center. He made the point that the Sfarad, the dispersion of the Jews of Sfarad really creates the diaspora. So the Jews of the diaspora really emanate, because what your point is well taken. At the period that the Jews lived in Sfarad, that some people say 80, some people 70, there was at least 70% of all Jews lived there. So just think about that. If 70% of all Jews lived in Sfarad at that time, and from there they're dispersed literally throughout the world. So a lot of the Jewish communities, and that was the point I wanted to make that Ashley made, a lot of the Jewish communities that we know today, whether it's in England or the United States, really emanate from the Sepharad diaspora.
So this obviously impacted Jewish history, but these were educated people. So when they went to other countries, when they went to Turkey and to Greece and to Netherlands, they brought knowledge and education. They brought the ability to create businesses, really, they transformed every society they went to, right?
Well, that was the Jewish calling card. The Jews kind of survived by the strength of their being people of the book, and that's what distinguished them from everyone else. I mentioned how the Moors collaborated with the Jews. Well, why do you think they collaborated with the Jews? Because the Jews would actually help them manage their affairs. It was true also of the Christian communities. But yes, in fact, the point is that the leader of the Ottoman Empire kind of laughed at the king of literally at the king of Spain and said, "You're a fool. You're sending out your treasure. I'll take them." And so many, and if not most of the Jews, actually wound up in the Ottoman Empire, where they were welcomed with open arms. And by the way, they didn't have to hide; they were able to practice Judaism in the open.
Yeah, actually, I think that's one of, it's more of a side point, but I also think it's a very important point that Jewish people actually got along pretty well with Muslim people for, it seems like, a very long stretch of time throughout this period.
Jewish people got along with anyone who was accepting of them. Jewish people never started trouble. It just wasn't in the DNA. And so your point is well taken. And I kind of mentioned it in my earlier opening statement. The advantage was that the Moors, which are actually Muslims from North Africa, being Semites, there was a better connection and understanding between them and the Christian kingdoms. And so yes, you listen. The Golden Age lasted for some 700 years, more or less, and so you're absolutely right. It was a period of time where Jews and Muslims collaborated in a big way, and the Golden Age that we're talking about created a lot of very important advances, and it was due to a collaborative atmosphere. So you're right. That's a good point.
It's incredible. What do you think? Where do you think this is going? We obviously have this historical message, but there's a lot of implications for our future. Where do you think this is going, and how do you think Jewish Heritage Alliance is going to be involved in what's to come?
Good question. Look, I believe that this is one of the most important parts of Jewish history. You touched about something that a few minutes ago when you talked about the fact that, by and large, when we speak about Jewish history, we talk about biblical times and we go to Eastern Europe and the Holocaust. I don't mean to minimize the Holocaust. It was a terrible event. I'm a son of a Holocaust survivor. But what happened in Sfarad is a very important segment, a key, I would say, a segment of Jewish and world history that was overlooked. And so when I discovered the story of Sfarad, I discovered it. I fell across it. I was one of the many, like many others, who didn't know much about it. When I came across the story of Sfarad and realized just how profound and extensive and far-reaching it was, and then simultaneously I figured that most people don't know anything about it, I was perplexed. I said, that's impossible. Here's something that's not only relevant historically, it's unfolding today. Where do you have a segment of history that's it's living out its consequences in present day? And that's what's happening here. So I see the implications on a very positive footing.
Can I interrupt?
And I go
Because
ahead.
I actually want to mention, you mentioned the Holocaust. Very sad event. There's a lot of grief there, obviously, that never should have happened, and it did. But I also think the narrative of being Jewish because of that event has been sorrow. And I think the story of Sepharad, as you're representing it, is a story of hope. Because with the Holocaust, as you said in your last interview, the fate of these people was final. With Sepharad, these people are still here, and there's hope there.
Well put. Well put. It goes right to your narrative, Hope Network. You're absolutely right. I think that's a key difference. Listen, I don't mean to compare the two. They're two different. They're two different events, and they have different implications. There are some similarities, but by and large, they're different. And we spoke about it in our last segment. We talked to Joe Lovett, and he touched upon that. But your point is well taken. The story of Sfarad is a story of hope. It's a story of revival. People are coming back. People are coming back after hundreds of years of being denied their Jewish heritage. People are finding out that this was stolen from them, and they actually speak about it on those terms. And as I said, many embrace their heritage, whether they come back or not, and some make the effort to come back. It's a challenging. Listen, coming back to your Jewish roots is a very arduous, challenging journey, and we will talk about that another time. And I think we touched upon that when we had Ginny Milgram. But people are making the comeback, and many of those people who are coming back are actually moving to Israel, making what we call Aliyah. So to answer your question, I'll put it another way. I tell you this. I believe that in 100 years from now, or maybe less, when we look back at history, this story that's unfolding now is going to be a pivotal part of Jewish history.
Wow. Spoken here first by Michael Steinberger. I believe it. I mean, when I came in contact with it, I'm like, why are we not learning this? Why is this not in history? And all these questions, and you had all the answers, and it took a couple of months to really put the puzzle together. But when I saw it, I was like, this is something that people should know about. And that's why we're here. Real quick, because we're going to have 10 more minutes to share, but for people, you've been mentioning all the other interviews, you can go back to the Jewish Heritage Alliance Facebook page and you can see the entire interview series for people that missed those.
Okay, listen, for me, I think we touched the points that I wanted to touch upon, because this is not open to public questions. I would just summarize by telling everyone that the story of Sfarad is a very profound, important story, not just for the Jews, but for the world. And as I said before, I know I'm being repetitive. What's so strange, not strange, what's so special and unique about the story of Sfarad is that it's part of history that's still living out its consequences today. That to me is amazing. And I think the best is yet to come. And so Jewish Heritage Alliance was formed literally from the supposition that says that most people don't know anything about this, and that can be. So what we're doing is we're creating an alliance, and that alliance grows monthly and yearly. We are still relatively in early stages. We've been around for about 5+ years. We're getting ready to go into what we call phase 2, our next phase, which will see our website become a portal. And our intent is to be a central point for everything Sfarad, no matter what your interests are. So I invite each and every one of the people here today, and those who will hear this on the recording, to please follow us, and keep coming back, because our story and our platform grows. this is not, we've not presented a car or a product and here it is and here are all the moving parts. No, we're presenting something that's organically growing as we speak, and the manifestation of it changes all the time. And I invite each and every one of you to stay with us as this story unfolds. Keep coming back, visit our website, see the developments, and look forward to our next webinars. With the next presentation we hope to have is a webinar on our exhibit, which we are going to produce with Beta Tfusot, and also with the assistance of the folks from Porto, who were very helpful to us, and some other organizations. So the next big item for us that I ask you to try and join us with is going to be webinars about the exhibit. And we expect to do that right after the Jewish holidays. So thank you everybody for your attention and for your interest. Nathan, thank you for your work, good work, and for your interest. And we'll catch everybody else. Let me wish everybody Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Tomorrow night enters the Jewish New Year. It's going to be a good year. We're going into the new year with new peace in the Middle East, at least the potential for peace. So I'm very excited about the peace agreement that was signed the other day. So I wish everybody a happy, healthy new year, and God willing, this coronavirus will be behind us someday real soon. And we look forward to seeing you online again. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And I'll reiterate that. I believe the next year is going to be much better than 2020. We're going to have blessings and peace. I love that we're starting on this foundation of peace. And thank you for being here, Michael. Great interview. I always love talking with you, and you have so much wisdom to share on this subject. I'm sure people were just simply captivated with everything you said.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Well, take care and we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.